Ray Kroc, a businessman, is giving a motivational, engaging speech to persuade a man to buy a multi-mixer machine, promising that sales will grow. Unfortunately for Ray, the owner of the establishment is not interested at all and rejects the offer. Ray walks to his car and puts the machine in the trunk. Once in his car, he observes the customers and the menu and waits for an order. When the waitress comes, Ray complains about the 20-minute wait, but the girl apologizes and replies that today they have plenty of work. Next, he drives to Belleville and tries to sell the mixer machine to a different place, but he doesn't succeed. Everything seems to be the same as in the previous drive-in establishment, the same kind of clients and the same lame customer service. On the phone, he explains to Ethel, his wife, that he has strong leads, but she sounds apathetic, which makes Ray a bit upset, so he makes up an excuse to hang the phone. Mr. Kroc is not successful at all, which worries him, but he tries to motivate himself by playing an LP with a discourse on persistence. Ray drives to Chesterfield, but he fails to sell his product again. Then he phones Prince Castle Sales, the company he works for, and June receives the call. She fetches all the messages he has received, but the only one that calls Ray's attention is an order for 6 mixers for a drive-in located in San Bernardino, California. Ray thinks that there was a misunderstanding, so asks for the phone number and calls the client back. This establishment is none other than McDonald's. Ray calls for the owner, but it turns out that there are 2 of them, Rick and Mac. Over the phone, he hears that there is a lot of work going on in the store, which draws Ray's attention even more. Mr. Kroc talks to Rick about the order, and the customer asks how soon would be there. Ray explains that there was a mistake in the number of mixers, but Rick just claims that it's not a good moment to talk and gives Ray the store address to have the machines delivered. Despite being far away, Ray drives to San Bernardino. When he arrives, he is impressed by the number of people crowded in line. Ray orders food and is delivered incredibly fast. He is amazed by the service and quality of the product. While he is eating the hamburger, one of the owners shows up. That's how Ray meets Mac. They shake hands, and Mr. Kroc explains he is in Los Angeles for business, which we know isn't true, and he decided to come to say hello. Ray lets Mac know how surprised he is about the store, so Mac invites him for a little tour. Once inside the establishment, Mac says that speed is the name of the game, explains the products are all custom built, and shows the meticulous process they carry out to have the perfect burger in only 30 seconds. Astonished by the system, Ray asks how it was created, and at that moment we know Rick, Mac's brother, owner, and co-creator of the Speedy system. Although Ray shows his enthusiasm and wants to congratulate them, Rick doesn't even care and continues working. He grabs a fry and complains about its texture, but Mac disagrees, claiming that it's perfect. They argue about oil temperature and cooking times, so we can get a picture of how pretentious and perfectionist Rick is. Ray interrupts the conversation, but again, Rick doesn't listen to him. Mr. Kroc persists. He states that the establishment is the best he has ever seen in the food industry and invites both to dinner. While Mac feels glad, Rick is not convinced until Ray says he wants to know their story. The 3 guys meet in a restaurant, and Mac tells Ray they moved to Hollywood in search of a job. Mac wanted to be in the movie business and Rick just wanted to be employed. After some years driving trucks for Columbia Pictures, they bought a movie theater. Unfortunately, the timing wasn't the best. Mac explains that nobody in the town was making money except for a guy who had a hot dog and root beer stand. So, the brothers opened up a little hot dog stand in Arcadia, which went right, but they wanted to relocate it. As they didn't have enough money to buy a new stand, Rick suggested bringing their stand to San Bernardino. Rick's idea was brilliant, but there was an overpass, so the building wouldn't be able to go through. Unbelievable as it sounds, the solution was sawing the stand in half. Then Mac and Rick explained they offered a 27-item menu, but they realized that food took a long time to arrive and the tremendous overhead was tough to pay. As a result, they focused just on 3 items that sold the best: hamburgers, French fries, and soft drinks. Another change was that customers had to walk to the counter to order, and the brothers used only disposable materials. But the cherry on the cake was the wait. The orders were ready in 30 seconds rather than in 30 minutes. Although Mac encourages Rick to tell the story, he interrupts him, saying they had to reconfigure and rethink everything, so they went to a tennis field, drew the dimensions of their kitchen, and after several trials, they got the perfect and most efficient arrangements. In that way, the brothers created the revolutionary Speedy system, but customers didn't get used to it. They didn't want to get out of their cars and had to discard their trash. To solve that, Mac thought of throwing a grand reopening with spotlights, sparklers, and jugglers for the kids. But this time, millions of flies were attracted by the lights and the people went away. The next day, Rick and Mac were thinking of coming back to the old system when a boy knocked on the window to order food. Despite being closed, Mac gave him the order for free, and suddenly, loads of cars had gathered to buy their product. Ray lies in bed, but he cannot sleep because he is thinking about this amazing story. The next day, he goes to the establishment and tries to convince McDonald's owners to franchise the store. They explain that they have already tried, but none of the 5 establishments met the quality control standards and refuse Mr. Kroc's proposal, but Ray insists. At that moment, he stops his gaze on a picture hanging on the wall. The image shows a McDonald's concept with a particular design, the Golden Arches. Ray asks if there are any built that way, and Rick replies that the only one is in Phoenix. Mr. Kroc drives there and is completely amazed by that drive and design. Back in Arlington Heights, Ray's hometown, he tells his wife about the Revolutionary System restaurant he saw and says that he wants to be part of it. Ethel shows her dissatisfaction and tells him that she wants to enjoy life with him. She asks him when it will be enough for him, to which Ray replies that probably never. Driven by his ambition, Ray returns to McDonald's and asks Rick and Mac to franchise for his country. Ray then explains that he visited several small towns and they all had two things in common: crosses and flags. The concept of the Golden Arches would be a perfect fit as it would represent the community. The brothers take a few minutes to discuss it, at which point we learn this was Rick's dream and that Mac has diabetes. The owners of McDonald's want to have total control over the quality of the products, so they draw a contract that Ray signs without paying too much attention. They are now partners. Immediately, Ray looks for investors, but everyone recognizes him due to his previous jobs and nobody wants to give him funds. So Ray mortgages his house to finance his project. Mr. Kroc wants to strike a deal with Coca-Cola, but the founder brothers refuse it because they believe that McDonald's was founded with the idea of families and they don't want an advertisement on their menu. That doesn't stop Ray, who works hard in the new Des Plaines branch where meets Fred Turner, a barbecue operator who does his job perfectly. Back in his home, Ray apologizes for having neglected his wife and suggests going to the club for supper the following day. Once in the club, his rich friends mock him when he tells them about the new business in which he is taking part, but Ethel supports him, so Ray explains what is it about. Although some of them accept the agreement, Rick and Mac worry that it's happening too quickly and standards won't be met. Ray visits the new franchises and realizes they sell products that weren't part of the menu and kitchens were filthy, so he puts them out of business because they only wanted to make a profit, and cancels his club membership. Later in his office, he meets a Catholic Bible seller who is Jewish and claims by doing that he is making a living, which calls Ray's attention, so he offers him to set up a new McDonald's branch. From now on, Ray focuses on common people, mainly couples, to run franchises. Mr. Kroc frequents different places and recruits plumbers and salesmen who are willing to work hard and maintain the quality of the company. Thanks to this initiative, he sets out the ideals of McDonald's under the name of family. Although Ray fills the Midwest with franchises, the brothers are upset with him for calling the Minneapolis location McDonald's No. 1. What is worse, Ray declares himself as the founder. Now with Fred Turner as his associate, Ray meets Rollie Smith, the owner of a fancy restaurant who wants to enter the business. But most importantly, he meets Joan, a beautiful woman to whom he is attracted. Joan is Rollie's wife, but Ray doesn't care. Back home, Ethel says that she has more couples interested in joining in, but Ray, who is getting greedier, doesn't listen to her and explains that now people are looking for him. However, the contract he signed is not enough to pay his debts and is about to lose his house. He calls Mac and Rick to renegotiate, but they both reject. Everything gets worse when the bank phones Ray home, but his wife answers, so now she knows about the mortgage. Ray, full of anger, goes to the bank and claims that calling his house is an invasion of his privacy, but the banker explains he is 3 months behind on his payment. Later that night, Ray visits Joan's branch with a surprise inspection as an excuse. Ray meets Rollie and Joan to discuss an idea to reduce costs and improve production. Joan's idea is to use a powdered milkshake, which tastes exactly the same as the original, but it costs a fraction of the ice cream and it doesn't need refrigeration. Mr. Kroc loves the idea, but when he tells the brothers, they feel offended and refuses to listen to him one more time. At this moment, Ray is fed up with the brothers' power over the company. Ray requests the bank to extend his line, but nothing can be done until he pays for his debt. Nevertheless, another banker hears the conversation and decides to help Ray. This guy is Harry Sonneborn, a financial consultant and great McDonald's admirer. Sonneborn notices Ray's financial problems and advises him not to focus on the burger business but on the real estate business. Mr. Kroc understands that he needs to own the land which is hired by the branches. In that way, the franchisees must pay him, getting money for paying debts and expansion. Mr. Kroc founds the Franchise Realty Corporation, his own real estate franchise company that grows and expands across the country, creating an empire in the food industry under his name. This infuriates Rick and Mac. They can't stand someone else taking credit for something they worked so hard to create, but being different companies, the brothers can do little about it. On the other hand, everything gets better for Ray. He does what he wants with the company and sends the powdered milkshakes to everyone but the brothers. Besides, he becomes closer to Joan as she has the ambition his wife doesn't. Then, during a silently stone-cold dinner, Mr. Kroc tells his wife he wants a divorce. He is willing to give her all, house, car, insurance, but part of the company. He also wishes to separate himself from the brothers no matter what the cost. Ray changes the name of his company to the McDonald's Corporation and adds the famous logo. But this is too much for the brothers, who threaten to sue him. The stress and impotence lead Mac to end up hospitalized. Then Ray appears ready to buy everything with a blank check, but the brothers decide to go ahead with the lawsuit anyway. Mac and Rick realize they cannot win, so they demand $2.7 million, 1% of the company's profits in perpetuity, and the San Bernardino branch. Ray is furious but accepts the deal. However, he tricks them into making the 1% covenant not part of the contract and is carried out on a handshake basis. Rick meets Ray in the bathroom and asks him why didn't he steal from them from the beginning and create something of his own. Ray confesses what neither he nor any other restaurant could have is the name, the glorious name that would represent America. Since it wasn't his, he bought it, he wanted it from the first moment, and now he has it. As the brothers are unable to prove the handshake, they lose all rights to their creation and are left with only their small establishment but could never use the McDonald's name again. Now we see Ray Kroc in front of a mirror giving the speech he had listened to at the beginning of the movie. He is practicing a presentation he will give, and it seems that Reagan will be listening. At that moment, Joan appears, and now they are husband and wife. The founding brothers went out of business a few years later. Even worse, they never received their royalties, which today would be worth over $100 million per year. Nowadays, McDonald's is one of the largest real estate holders in the globe and feeds 1% of the population every day.